And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to our panel discussion on loyalty programs. We're going to chat about loyalty breakthroughs, elevating brand stickiness. Joining us today, we have Elise DeCamp, CEO of Toki. Hey, Elise. Thank you for coming.
Thank
We
you.
have, thank you. We have Chris Harris from Impossible Machine. Hey, Chris.
Hello,
And we
hello.
have, hello. And we have Emily Hollander from Next Wave Marketing. Hey, Emily.
Hi, happy to be here.
Right. And we're very excited to have all of you on stage today to talk about loyalty programs. And we're going to jump right in and talk about how to design an effective loyalty program. So, Elise, I have a question for you. As the CEO of Toki, who has led multiple projects in the past from ideation to adoption and growth, how do you approach the initial design of a loyalty program? And what are the core elements that you believe are essential for success? What are the unconventional elements too that marketers can use to go beyond? So this is a very complex question. Take your time.
Yeah. I like that we're getting into the unconventional stuff immediately. Um, our take is that the most important part of creating anything that's effective is being very analytical. So we're data driven at the heart of what we do at Toki, and we like to partner with agencies as well that are very data driven. And so what we are encouraging brands that are thinking about either launching their first loyalty program or rehashing their current one is looking at the history of their customers and doing a full scope analysis of the customer cohorts that they have and how they've been spending just naturally on their own. And oftentimes what we'll find is patterns that help us design the program. So what we want to see is the time between the first purchase and the second purchase and how that changes based on a customer that spent $50 versus a customer that spent $150. We want to look at that window and repeat purchase rate. We want to look at the AOV. And generally, like what that will tell us is some of the drop-off points or some of the areas where we can tweak. So we're diagnosing it just like a doctor would. I kind of feel like when we have our first sales calls, it's more like a health checkup where we're doing a scope of analysis. And we also have this tool that we use to do that as well, which makes it really easy. You can just plug in your data and it spits out a program structure. And so sometimes we'll start with that and then we'll tweak from there. But really, it's about the data and it's about getting to a point where we're improving upon those metrics. And of course, we all talk about increasing LTV, but how we do that really is contingent upon the types of products that you're selling and the past history. So a program for a pet food brand is going to look very different than a program for a bedding company. And surprisingly, there's lots of programs out there that are successful for bedding companies. So even if you have a high AOV product, you can have a great program. Maybe it's more of a paid membership versus a traditional like tiered loyalty system, but there's always something for everyone. It's just a matter of creating something that's curated to the brand. And we like to talk about how there's not a one size fits all. It's a lot of different ways to cut it. So.
I love it. And from what you mentioned, I think from the data that you can get from how customers are engaging with the brand and also what the brand is actually all about and what is their purpose and how they behave and position themselves, that's a way to find a very unique narrative to that loyalty program. So I love that you connect the data to that kind of narrative and how the brand behaves to create that kind of genuine loyalty program. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Emily, I love to hear about the Runaways loyalty program that you helped build. That's so exciting. I would love to hear about more specifically the framework that you used for designing that loyalty program, and what are the key components from that program that you think helped it become so unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think back my favorite part about Rent the Runway's loyalty program, which we called an ambassador program at the time, was that it truly was a community. So
For those of you who are unfamiliar, Rent the Runway is a rental platform for designer fashion, and organic growth at the time when I was part of the team was truly unparalleled. I mean, customers were voluntarily talking about and sharing their experience on social, they were writing reviews, they were referring other members. And so, as a marketer, that was really a light bulb moment of, okay, how do we really harness the power of this customer excitement and energy to drive lasting loyalty and future growth. So that's where this idea for an ambassador and kind of deeper loyalty and advocacy program came to life. And I really had no playbook when I was starting to test this. So there were three things that I did to build the program from 0 to 1. The first was I talked to as many customers who would speak to me. I picked up the phone, asked them lots of questions to better understand why did they love Rent the Runway, what kept them coming back, what did they want to see from the how do they want to deepen their relationship, and ultimately use those insights to kind of co-create the program with them. So first takeaway, talk to your customer. You'll have a lot to learn. Secondly, I started small and stayed pretty focused. So I actually tested the program with college students to start. So looked at a very specific customer segment and kind of age profile. And the benefit of college too is that we could test in like a 3 month semester time frame and learn a lot in a really isolated region and place. So don't be afraid to start small and really stay focused, whether that's looking at a specific customer segment. We also broke it down by region as well. So it's okay to, start with something that maybe isn't scalable, but allows you to learn really quickly. And then the third is really, I tried to build a community. So Rent the Runway, just by nature of it being a membership-based product, was really such a dominant part of our community's life already. And I think there's something really powerful around not just building a relationship with your customer, but connecting customers together. We ended up investing a lot in both building a platform digitally and in person for our customers to come together and connect. And we found that that was a really powerful way to just continue to deepen loyalty and fandom by connecting our customers with other customers. So those were three ways that I approached it. And then, of course, iterated, looked at the data, and was able to expand the program to our broader customer base after building that kind of V1 program to start.
I didn't know about the about starting at universities. That's so smart, and also because it kind of if you become a brand that they love so much, you're gonna have them connect with you throughout their like adult life as well. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, college is such a great testing ground for so many different products and programs.
Mm, nice. Chris, I have a question for you. At Impossible Machine, you work with brands of different sizes, and I wonder if there is a different approach to loyalty depending on the growth stage of that brand, really. So, what is your point of view there? And could you share one innovative strategy for designing loyalty programs that have proven to be particularly effective for brands that are just starting to scale their growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any entrepreneur is pretty ambitious to begin with, right? That's why you got into the business you're in. I think a common pitfall is thinking that you're going to roll out the best loyalty program ever on day one. I actually advise that you just get a quality framework in place to start. Rome wasn't built in a day. So just remember that it's all about iterating. It's a living, breathing thing. So when you roll this thing out, it's never going to be perfect. And I know there's so many boxes to check, especially if you're a brand owner that really is passionate about your brand and design and copy and all those things. There's so many marks to hit. So my advice is always, let's just get this thing going. Let's get a good quality framework in place with all the right pieces. And then over time, you're going to learn, you're going to iterate, you're going to grow it. You're going to understand what incentives are aligned with each individual audience. So if we come back to Elise's point where she's talking about different cohorts, that's really important information to track along. So if you have a measurement plan in place, for example, and you have a segmentation strategy in place, you're able to tie back a lot of those metrics to each individual cohort. You're going to actually be able to A/B test some of those offers. You're going to be seeing very clearly what's working, what's not working. And also keep in mind too, this is another point that I think gets lost, is if you're new on your organizational life cycle, So I'm going to take you back to marketing 101 here with those crazy charts. There's a marketing life cycle, right? And it's if you're just starting out, no one knows about you. You have no awareness. No one really knows anything. So you need to take that into consideration when you're building out your loyalty program. Is there a lot of educational components involved? Is there a lot of opportunity to build brand and tell your story? All those things that you would sort of expect, just the basics, you would be blown away how many people just kind of miss that opportunity to actually educate and inform the customer and bring them along into the fold. Because that's really what the loyalty program is about, right? Is bringing you into the fold, making you a part of the brand. So it's co-creation of meaning. That's really what a brand is, right? And then my other point that I wanted to make is, where are they on that product adoption curve? So you're on the organizational life cycle, right? But you're also thinking about, where are they? And so quite honestly, if you're a new organization, you probably are very early on in that product adoption curve. So these are probably people that found you organically, or they just somehow had a natural inclination towards your product. And so you got to keep in mind, those people are already primed to be brand advocates. They're primed to be out there putting out the good word for you, telling your story. So you need to understand what actually motivates and moves those types of people. They want to be involved. They want to be a part of your story. So when I say, what are we going to do for a loyalty program for a new business? Well, we're going to understand those people's motivations, and we're going to give them the tools to go leverage word of mouth and leverage their networks, because they're of that mindset that they're the early adopter and the innovator. So they're happy to do that. And that is so powerful, especially in today's day and age when, acquisition costs are rising and there's so much talk about meta and CPMs, this and that. And it's like, guys, let's focus in on our 80-20, our early adopters on that product curve, and really focus in on what they want. What value do they derive from our experience? And so it's just a high touch thing. And it makes sense that you would be concerned that it would be perfect, but it's never going to be perfect. Just get the ball rolling and try to understand. And if you can do some ethnographic research, like Emily pointed out, where you actually have real conversations with those types of people, you're going to be so much better off and so much more informed. You can have other tools like surveys and things as well, gathering zero-party data. But it's never a bad idea to just pick up the phone and call somebody.
I love that, especially because those customers that are the early adopters, they're usually so excited about your brand and about the solution that, they finally found for themselves. They kind of want to spread the word anyway. So I think the least you can do is to help them help you grow, right? So talk to them and ask them what they need and what they're looking for. And you might as well find all the ideas right there. So thank you, Chris. Yeah, thank you for walking us through that. Elise, I have another question for you. Once the loyalty program is designed, what are the key steps for implementing it smoothly and effectively? And what do you consider to be the most relevant KPIs to keep track of?
So to do it smoothly, it depends on if you're doing first time or transfer. If you're doing it for the first time, the most important part of making it smooth is basically like the testing process and then the marketing communication to announce it. A big thing that we talk about is just over communication. I think we believe if we talk about something one time, then everyone's seen it and it's like good to go. Actually, people need to kind of be like hit over the head with this type of marketing communication, believe it or not, and you can get creative with like how you do it, but the more communication the better, and that can be on site as well as through email and SMS. But testing is a really important part, so making sure you do have a segment or a cohort that you're testing out the program with before you go live, and ensuring that you're testing on site as well as in your emails before you press send. So that's super important. For a transfer, so if you are going from a older legacy software to a new legacy software, same process. However, you want to make sure that you are doing some list testing, and those loyalty members from the prior program do have the same credits and birthdays and whatever data that legacy software has given you. You need to make sure that's been transferred over. And so we typically do 2 transfers. We do one when they first started the onboarding to just make sure the data looks good. And then again, right before we go live to make sure that in that period of onboarding, which can be like a week to 2 weeks, we get everyone new to the program onto this Topi software. And so it's I would say the most time consuming part of the programs are the design implementation. Oftentimes brands that we work with really are tweaking design a lot. And so we always want to bake in more time to that versus the other things. Backend's very, very simple. Doing the data analysis to understand what the program should look like is very, very simple. But oftentimes it's really making it beautiful, which is what we're all spending so much time on anyways, because we're doing that for conversion and everything. So that's a big, big, big factor in launching a smooth program. And and then from there, to your point, like the analytics behind it are key. So what we try to do is usually we'll see a tremendous lift in the first week to 2 weeks, because if you haven't had a program before, you've been wanting to do one, you're going to see blast off, because you're going to see all those loyal customers that have been waiting for this get really excited and usually take advantage and make a purchase. And so you're going to see an ROI very, very quickly. And then we're really tracking not only just ROI, but as I mentioned earlier, we're tracking for increase in repeat purchase rate and increase in LTV. And those are the main ones, but we can talk a little bit about this more too. I know Chris and I have talked about how there's some debate about, how do you track loyalty ROI? Because maybe these are customers that were already going to purchase before, like where is the overlap there? So we can get into that later, but I think that's a really interesting topic that, that's truly up for debate. But we have a great CSM team. So we have people that speak with us every day through Slack. And then we have others that we're on a monthly call cadence with to check in on their analytics. And we're super proud of our analytics. We think it's a really, really important part of doing this right. It's not just launching it and having it on site, but really being able to say, this is the why this is working, and this is how we think about tweaking it on a regular basis.
Exactly. It's a growing living thing, just as Chris mentioned before, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And speaking of that, Emily, I have a question for you about how to evolve a loyalty program as a brand grows. You probably experienced that before with Rent the Runaway. And I would love to understand the indicators that signal that it's time to make the changes or updates to that existing program.
Yeah, great question. And Elise, I mean, you just touched on this too, around really getting clear on what success looks like. I think that's the first piece of outlining, okay, what are the KPIs that you want to be tracking? And yeah, how are you tracking towards those goals? And using that to really as like your North Star to make sure that your program is moving in the right direction. So as Chris mentioned, programs are a living and breathing thing. And so constantly monitoring, iterating and testing is really the name of the game here. I think another like approach to think about here as well is just the fact that loyalty program is not just a tactic, but I really encourage you to think it as part of your kind of broader integrated marketing strategy and communications plan overall. So instead of just thinking of it as like a one-off set it and forget it type of thing, I would encourage you to add your community and your ambassador or loyalty program to your marketing calendar. I mean, how are you keeping this community engaged and top of mind? How are you adding joy and delight to the customer experience in unexpected ways? How are you activating this community around other kind of like tentpole brand moments or campaigns? So I think thinking of it as a marketing channel as well could be a way for you to stay kind of top of mind on it. I mean, the reality is too, the world is moving super, super fast. And like as marketers, we need to be agile too. So I think, positioning it as part of your marketing and communication strategy overall can make sure that you're continuously evolving and iterating on it, and also just getting creative and surprising and delighting customers along the way too.
Awesome. And does anyone here have any examples of something creative that they implemented like along the way, like from data that they got, or just ideas that worked out or didn't work out really? Like I'm curious about any experiments.
Chris, do you want to go ahead? Not to
Yeah, I actually I was gonna save this for last, honestly, but I recommend that everyone, if you have not read Purple Cow by Seth Godin, go read it. Is like if I was to be pushed off onto a desert island, like Castaway, and I just wanted to be stuck with one book, that would be it. Because I think if you're gonna frame the conversation and be delivering real value with your program, not just like here's some cash back or here's this and that. Really make it about the unique needs of in each individual cohort. So I think here's my thought exercise and my challenge to everyone is that think of the craziest thing, like the craziest reward that if there were no restrictions, there was nothing in place that prevented you from doing anything. And so in my preparation for this, I actually used Tesla because I think this is a good thought exercise for everyone. Maybe if there's no restrictions, we're going to send everybody that buys your third Tesla to Mars. Well, maybe that's not feasible. So then we're going to reel it back a little bit. And so what can we do? Well, maybe we can create an experience that's exclusive, that is reserved for just our best customers, where we go to Las Vegas, we invite everybody, and we work with Meow Wolf to create essentially a Marsscape in their warehouse that is an exclusive perk for those customers, right? So when I approach working with clients, this is actually what I'm doing. I'm thinking like, what's the wildest, craziest thing that's not boring that people are actually going to care about? Because as we go through our day, everything is the same. It feels mundane. It feels completely stale in so many ways, especially with loyalty, because it's like, well, here's like 3 cents back. And it's like, I don't care about that. Like, I don't care about 3 cents. Like that's not going to hook me. So regardless of what brand you are, I think it's just more illustrative to give you that idea of like, well, what can you do that's just crazy and off the wall that just grabs people's attention? And if you look across the landscape, so few people are doing this kind of thought exercise. So it's more of a challenge. And my response is like, really push it to the nth degree of like what you think is the craziest, wildest thing that your marketing department and your accounting department, for that matter, would let you sign up for. And those are generally going to be the best incentives, right? And it's also going to build community. You're going to attract attention from like Adweek and all the publications and stuff. They're going to say, this is the best loyalty program. Oh, this and that. Because you took a risk and you broke the noise and you read Purple Cow. So go read Purple Cow.
Yeah, I will totally add to that. I think in a way, Mr. Beast is one of the biggest blessings to us as like in commerce, because he really broke up and shook up the norm of what it means to acquire and retain customers and build a loyal community. Of course, like that is inherent with all creators and influencers, but there's something about how wild he has gone with like, I just watched the video the other day of him burying himself for 7 days. I just crazy stuff that I think, of course, like tangential with Feastables really it's a different blueprint that I'm really glad that we're in, because we have been, to Chris's point, in a 10-year, what feels like slump of the same thing on everyone's marketing playbooks of check the box. And so I just like to think we're in a new 10-year phase of really of creativity and of activation. So yeah, I haven't read the book. Now I'm going to, because I'm 100% on board with this. Totally agree.
Same here. I know, Chris, I just wrote it a note. We'll definitely be adding that to the list. And I think one final thought here as well is like just thinking about how you want to make your customers feel. I mean, both of you are so right where, I mean, as consumers, we're also exhausted. Like there's just like information overload everywhere. There's, not enough time to be part of every single brand community or like, to pay attention to every piece of communication that comes our way. And so would also challenge you to just think about, yeah, like how at the end of the day are you making your customers feel, and how can you create something that is truly memorable? So, of course, there's like the typical incentives like, cash back or discounts toward future product. But what about other like non-product related ways that you can reward customers? I mean, at Rent the Runway with our ambassadors, we had thought that, yeah, getting free product was something that would keep them motivated, but actually they wanted to come to our headquarters and meet our team and meet the founder. And so we ended up planning a trip for our top performing ambassadors to come to our headquarters and meet the team. And so I think, yeah, just like think about how you're building those relationships and making people feel, because that ultimately will what is what people remember at the end of the day.
Thank you all for contributing. Yeah, Elise, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't say earlier, I'm such a huge Rent the Runway fan. I've been like a 5-year user, addicted. I don't even know what's in my closet anymore. So I'm one of those people.
I love it. I love it.
It's working.
Woo! Yeah, I love that idea of like actually talk. Yeah, you probably went and talked to them to understand what they wanted to do, and then went ahead and I think there is another part of it that it's hard for a lot of us. I think us included, is that the operational part of creating something that is more unique is a lot harder to do than just plugging in the framework that everyone is doing, because there's software for that, but there isn't a software to kind of like organize that, all of that, like a trip for your ambassadors to somewhere unique. So I think there is always kind of like that barrier, but I love the challenge that you're all kind of mentioning here to get people to think outside the box and make it happen, not just think and not just leave those ideas in their mural boards, actually bring them into like their spreadsheets and make sure that they come out, they're in the calendar. So yeah, and throughout this conversation, if anyone has any any other examples of how they kind of like how you solved that operational part of a process that you thought you would be too hard, I would love to hear about that too. I had one example that just came up. We had once and for Women's Day, we created I used to work at this fintech back then, and then fintech is not the place where you don't think fintech and then women investing that often. And on Women's Day, most people do like, pink stuff and the whole like flower chocolate kind of thing. We created a beer for like that was named after a Mary Wells, like a very prominent woman on investment, and then from there we kind of. But from all of that, the hardest part was to actually send the beer bottle to all of our most important customers. But once we actually figured that out, like we had to, get a special box for all of that and make sure we had all the addresses correct and that they knew what they were getting, so that they also felt like they could actually drink that beer and it wasn't like from this, this random thing. So anyways, we almost didn't do it because, the operations was so hard. And I think that's usually a barrier for all of us as marketers and business owners. So yeah, I'll leave that invitation. So if anyone wants to come in and just like offer another example, Elise, you open your mic.
Yeah. One of my favorite programs that we're not powering, so this is not a sales pitch for Toki in any capacity. This is a personal Stan Girl kind of comment, but Bandit Running is a really beautiful brand selling running apparel, running super hot right now. I'm not a big runner, but I love what they're doing in that they have a membership program. It's a community. You get early access to products before they drop. You get free shipping. You get, perks at the brand, which is really great, but they've created an ecosystem around the brand. Of course, it's not just about running, it's about health and wellness. And so they also give you perks from other adjacent brands. So you get a discount at Therabody, you get a discount at Bath House Sundays, you get a discount at Y7 Yoga, Daily Harvest, Citizen M, to create an ecosystem. And I've seen that done a few times, but it's pretty rare. I just think it allows it's speaking to your community. Like, it's really just enveloping them and thinking about who they are as a consumer outside of your brand, because they're more than just, a bandit running customer. And so I think showing them that you see them, it just goes very, very far. And this type of thing can be operationalized. I think this is probably really hard. Like, for what they did is tough. We created an ecosystem, 150 brands. So you could do something like this. It's not as, creative, I would say, but we are partnered with like Airbnb, Target, Uber. So some major names that if you wanted to a la carte your way into something that fit your consumer, you could do it. And I like to think that that's sort of where we're headed. So it's all about being consumer first and thinking about who they are and what's meaningful to them. And that takes work to really understand your community. The Rent the Runway consumer, there's probably many different customer profiles, but there is something about, early 30s working woman that's in New York, and she is not only using Rent the Runway, but she's also going to Equinox, and she's also going to Juice Press or maybe Sakara or something like that. And so that just really, I think that goes a long way.
So think of the whole ecosystem in which this person is inserted, and what are the other brands that they're engaging with. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you
Make
for
their life
mentioning that.
easier.
Yeah, totally. I do have a question for Chris now. From your experience, Chris, what are the common pitfalls the brands face when they are running a loyalty program, and how can they avoid those pitfalls to not only maintain a program integrity and effectiveness, but also truly differentiate in a competitive market?
Yeah, I think it kind of gets back to the point I made earlier, and I see this all the time, and it's really a function of kind of how organizations are structured. It's that everything is sort of project based, and so it's like, get this done, okay, now on to the next thing, and you just kind of leave what you've done in the past as if it was a finished piece of art. The reality is that it's never finished. These are all same with email and SMS. So anytime we're approaching anything that we're building, same with paid ads, anything across the landscape, you can't just finish it and leave it alone. You got to give it attention. You got to give it love. You got to water it. And so it's no different with loyalty and rewards. And I think if you're regularly checking in, and I highly recommend that everyone actually put a time on the calendar. It could be quarterly. I would say do it quarterly. Because here's the other thing, you don't want to be too reactive. You have to let things mature and bake. And so to actually get any real insight from what you've created, you need a good sample size. So conversely, don't be too reactive. Give it some time to mature and grow. But over that period of time, just have regular check-ins and then make adjustments as needed. It can be quarterly. It doesn't need to be exhaustive, but by all means, if you're not seeing traction, and you're not seeing people adopting your offers, and there's not alignment with, as Elise mentioned, for example, if there's a partner that is not in alignment, you're going to see that pretty quickly. And so you can eliminate something that's not working or fill it with, there's real opportunity cost there. So constantly be evaluating, at least on a quarterly basis. And I think coming back to my point prior, really understanding too, things are always changing. Brands are evolving. So maybe if we came up with this cool idea, well, now that that's done, you got to come up with the next idea. You can't just be resting on your laurels and expecting that was enough. I think of some of the best brands in the space, like the Liquid Deaths. I feel like those guys sit down every Monday and they have that renewed energy of like, okay, now we got to go prove it again. And that's same with athletes. Anybody that's in a performance-based space is you got to go out and prove it every single time. And loyalty is no different. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And it's relational. It's relationship building, right? So a relationship needs attention. It needs dedication. It needs resources. And that meaning, as I mentioned earlier, is co-created. So a brand is not a thing that we own, right? It's like a thing that's shared. And the meaning is derived from that exchange. And that exchange is happening in your communities. It's happening through those experiences. So you have to think like, when I'm at Target because I just, you know, got some loyalty points. Well, that's a shared experience with the parent brand. So now I'm being pulled in this other direction, but maybe I'm, you know, having this great shopping experience that I'm now having a really high brand affinity for the original brand that I was, you know, a part of, because now I'm having a great time at Target. And so, as I mentioned, it can be your best friend or your worst enemy, and it all comes down to just effort. It's like an effort play, and really being accountable to results is the other thing I would say. So.
Thank you, Chris. So glad I asked you that question. Thank you for that. Okay, and I've been asking questions like to each person individually. Now I'm going to open, and I have a few final questions for all of you. I'm very excited about this part because you can just jump in and add to the conversation. So my first question is, how have you guys incorporated gamification into loyalty programs to boost engagement? And could you provide examples of gamification techniques that have worked out well?
Can you guys hear me? I'm a little worried I'm disconnected. Okay. Great. We love leaderboards. I think those are a super fun way to just actually encourage gamification. We have lots of different in our software. Basically, you can launch activities and require people to complete them in a period of time. That creates this urgency that's an important part of getting people activated and motivated. And so we see brands that will launch different activities, but then also post the leaderboards on a regular basis and create this type of expectation so that the members of the community are checking in on that leaderboard on a weekly or monthly basis. All of that takes just a marketing calendar, just like you create one for your social posts. You're going into your Eller or whatever you're using to coordinate what you're posting on a daily basis. Same thing that you're saying, Chris, is like just having like a weekly or monthly, like this is our plan in regards to activations, and scheduling that out is major key in getting things kind of done if you're thinking about doing something like this. So all the bones are there. It takes a little time to set up, but that does not only create gamification, but just creates more community. So those are my 2 cents on that.
I can hop in. Oh, Emily, you want to go? I was like the Jeopardy where I think we both hit the buzzer at the same time, and then we had to leave it up to Trebek. I don't know.
Go for it.
I'll jump in because I'm talking. So social challenges, I think competitions, anything that just naturally, like we as humans feel inclined to do. We're just naturally that way, where especially if I think of like a running brand, for example, like there's so many cool apps and different things. You could have different challenges, like so much opportunity within that space. It's like, what is everyone doing as a group? And that's the other thing I'll mention is that there's never been a better time to have in-person marketing initiatives, like things that are happening in the real world. People are craving that. People are highly, highly engaged in things like run clubs. Mariana, I'm sure that you've been to a few. But I think people just want to be out. They want to meet people. They're looking for new ways to meet people. So, you know, like shout out to the dating apps that are trying to do that. But it's like people are looking for other ways to do that, right? And so as a brand, why not leverage that desire, which is just innate in us right now, to actually roll out real challenges and rewards that are integrated. So I think, again, you just have to get creative. There's obviously logistics involved. But if you have brand ambassadors on the ground, like somebody like Emily on a college campus, leverage your network and just put a little bit of thought into it. It doesn't actually take that much work. You might be surprised how much of a reach you actually have into the individual communities. And then just start planning some things. You can do some small tests at first and see how that goes. You're going to learn a ton. And then you're also going to get content, by the way. You're going to get all the things that a brand needs from having like an in-person activation. Or like a pop-up shop, anything that you can pull off realistically. And so I think, when people talk about gamification, you can think beyond that. One thing I love is geocaching. I know that that's like a thing it had its moment, but there's like the whole era of Pokemon Go, and people were like doing these like scavenger hunts and things. It was a whole thing. But I think that in itself is a cool idea as well. So anything that you can experience in the physical world. There's so much opportunity, obviously, online, but if you can take it offline, you might be surprised at the results you get.
Have you done geocaching before, Chris?
Believe it or not, I have.
Incredible. I've always wanted to do that.
I was also in the Pokemon Go thing. I'm not ashamed to admit.
Amazing.
Awesome. And I second everything, Chrissy, you had shared around challenges. I think having and giving like an isolated or giving customers the opportunity to take a certain action in an isolated time frame creates a lot of like energy and momentum. And you'll be able to see some of those bursts and spikes of engagement there. And one other thing I'll add is also just thinking about and just acknowledging that customers want and might want to engage in your product in different ways. So some might resonate, say, with a more like social media focused type of challenge, whereas others, to Chris's point, might be more excited about engaging in person. And so I think testing different tactics to see what resonates and knowing that, not all customers will engage in every single type of thing. So I think that optionality is really key too.
Awesome. I have a question that just came up to my mind now. I'm gonna ask. I'm just gonna throw it there. I know, like, probably each of us have something that we really like and we're really passionate about, like in our personal lives. I was just talking to Emily before, and she mentioned she surfs. So my question to all of you is, so what is that? What would you, as that consumer, that kind of user of this specific kind of community or different brands within kind of like that kind of culture that you're inserted in, what would you like to see that that brands are not yet offering to you? And Emily, I'm going to start with you because you just mentioned you're a surfer. I'm curious about the surfing atmosphere. Like, what would you like to see there from brands?
Yeah. Ooh, that's such a great wild card question. Um, so I think surfing is an interesting like industry and sport and area where, for me as a woman surfer, I know that there's not like as many women in the water around here. And something that I've naturally, as just a surfer, have done is kind of created and cultivated community with other women who I meet who also surf. And I've informally created a women's surf club in Santa Monica. If anyone is in the neighborhood and wants to join, please let me know. Um, but I think community and everything we talked about. I mean, Elise, the like bandit example that you shared, and like run clubs as well. Like I feel like brands are engaging in some of these micro communities where that are like united by this common like interests and shared interests in fitness and running. So I think would love to see some more of that in the surfing community for sure. I think again, being able to gather people together and then also have products that are really good and work really well and that the community will enjoy, I think is a great combination. So yeah.
And one thing that I
Oh,
wonder as well is that from for a long period of time, I feel like brands were just investing. Like people didn't really have a voice. Like individuals, like normal individuals, didn't really have a voice because all we had was TV and like athletes that became their own stars and then Hollywood stars and all of that. And then somehow social media and the internet really um, decentralized attention, and then now there's attention going towards people that are like stream that are just like talking about things on their phones in their homes, and communities they're doing very specific things and very local things. So I wonder how, like, if brands are have reached that. I wonder how, like, when brands are going to understand how important it is to actually connect to those tiny communities and make things happen there. Because imagine, like, how much,
Mhm.
like, such different type of investment that you need to do in that kind of thing. It's a lot more about time than it is about the money that you're offering to those communities. Because sometimes, maybe for your community, if you got, like, I don't know, like those special towels like that you get out of the sea and they're all kind of like matching, maybe you'd be really excited about that, about those things, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we are seeing more broadly to this democratization of influence and like not necessarily, we're starting to see brands not just work with those like, mid-tier to celebrity influencers, but I think seeing that everyday people, even if they don't have, I have a few hundred social followers, but hey, like there's folks who are really embedded in communities and have that kind of network effect and influence more locally. So I do think we're starting to see that, and I would love to see that more and more from brands as well.
And all of that turns into UGC, just as Chris was talking about, right? Amazing. Anyone else wants to jump in about this?
I can jump in. I think we haven't even touched on personalization at scale, or maybe we did a little bit, but I think that as you just mentioned, Emily, a regional approach, I think there's never been a better time to scale responsibly and efficiently. So if you're thinking about profit and you're thinking about growing for the long term, back when I was a media planner, we had working with Peloton and Chewy, $50 million a year budgets. That's not happening anymore. What now can happen is you can be on connected TV for a super streamlined budget, focus a regional campaign. You could even focus by region with your offers for loyalty, have like really cool in-person stuff, and you could be everywhere in a very specific market that is your best market, where you have an over-index of your best cohorts. And by best cohorts, I mean your best customers. One thing I tell all the brands I work with is I don't actually think all customers are created equal. A lot of times it comes down to a Pareto where it's like an 80-20. So you got to think beyond the purchase, right? You got to actually look into the data and understand and do some cohort analysis. But I do think that if you're taking that regional approach, there's so much you can do, especially if you're leveraging an affiliate or an influencer network. I know there's some really cool tools in the space as well. And working with someone like Elise, they can actually have the cool thing about Toki here, because I know she's not plugging it as hard as I would like to probably, because I think it's the best out there. I think that you can get as creative as you want. So that's the benefit, is I can say, I'm working with Surfer John at Surfs Up USA Surf Shop in Venice Beach, and we're going to do this cool thing. And by the way, we're not going to have 1,000 people, but we're going to have 100 of our best people that are going to show up for this really cool thing. We're going to have a DJ. And if you come, you get free surf wax and you get this and that. And it's like just a really cool thing. And then, by the way, everyone that's your customer outside of that place is going to see that on social media, and they're going to have major FOMO, and they're going to say, when are you coming to our town? And so it can be this small scale thing, right, that has an outsized impact. And that's the other thing that all marketers, I think, are searching for, is like, what can I do that has like the biggest return on just like what the input versus what you get out of it. And so there's no problem starting with something small like that, to where, you just have this really cool thing on a smaller regional scale potentially. But then the cool thing is, if you build out a framework for that exact thing, then it's templated, and then you just replicate it in the next city, and you can be everywhere and for not a fraction of the cost. So you can do it responsibly, you can scale, and you can recreate those experiences in different places, and then everyone gets to experience them. So you can think more broadly, but try to narrow down your thinking, and think on a small scale first, and then roll it out to a wider audience.
I don't have much to add outside. I love Emily saying democratization of influence, because that's so real. There's two things that came up today that made me think about this, both on niching down as a brand, and both, I guess, niching down on software too. Talked to a brand founder today that's creating a nicotine pouch just for veterans, and it's fully like red, white, and blue, and it's I won't give away his name, but it's a really good name, well branded kind of name to go with this. And I think that you can do that. Like, that's how big the world is right now, and how valuable it is to create a brand around a smaller audience, and starting there and getting really strong with your vision of who your customer is. Same thing on the software side. I also learned about a software company today that is an affiliate platform specifically for moms in Latin America. So, but huge, like massive company. So the world is really big, and it helps to be very narrow with your audience, especially as you're growing.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Then, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the examples. Those are great. Okay, I have another question. So Chris has already mentioned a little bit about the personalization tactics and all of that. I would love to hear of any examples of how you've implemented personalization. And I'm asking that specifically because I feel like we've been talking a lot about how important it is, but I want to know like how we're actually doing this, like beyond um beyond like the manual data. Like I would love to know as well, like what do you think, at what stage you think we are right now, and at what stage do we need to get to actually offer a personalized, like an experience that we can say this is actually personalized.
I would love to hear Emily's answer on this from a Rent the Runway perspective, because I'm so curious how, I mean, when you have a SKU catalog of thousands and thousands of products, and then you have so many consumers that have specific, personalities and things that they like that also might change on like a weekly basis. Like today, I'm wearing leopard print cargos. But the fact that Rent the Runway can sometimes know that I would wear those occasionally, but also most of the time I'm in a button down. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm would
Yeah.
love any insights you have on that.
Absolutely. I mean, what's so interesting, and of course, the team has evolved a lot since I was part of it a few years back, but we had actually looked at our customers more broadly through the lens of life stages. And so, for example, college was the moment when a customer might first discover Rent the Runway. Then, they'd hear about us, build that initial trust, and then subscribe to our membership when they got their first job and needed workwear. We then started expanding more into maternity and supporting women throughout that stage of life. And so, what was interesting when it came to personalization was just acknowledging that our customers' lives are changing really fast and thinking about ways to be able to meet them where they are. And then it also acknowledged that their relationship with the brand is going to change throughout that time too. So even just that difference of thinking about our program through the lens of life stages, I think allowed us to create some very targeted, specific, and also like really valuable content and products for those customers during that time. And those are also moments too when people are looking for community. I mean, in college too, it's like just this natural built-in community and in time in your life where you want to connect with other people around you. So that's one, interesting flag that I'll share that I haven't seen kind of come up as consistently in other clients that I've worked with. And I think just also going back to, and this is, shows how much loyalty is related to like social listening. Some of the funnest and most impactful personalized tactics that I've done has been all through the lens of working very closely hand in hand with our social media lead and seeing, oh, this customer asked us this, or they, asked for this product that we know is launching soon. Like, how can we engage them and delight them in a way that they're not expecting? And so, for example, did this when I was working at the Wing. We had this was a co-working space. We are opening a new location in New York, and prior to announcing it, actually gifted 100 customers who had reached out to us on social requesting the specific location. And so I think, again, it's not super scalable, but having and like just listening to your customers and creating internal processes and checkpoints to be able to monitor and understand like what are people saying, and okay, how can we like really deepen our relationship with them, can go a long way.
I love all of those examples. Thank you for sharing, Emily. Those are amazing.
Whereas,
I want to jump in here. That made me think of something. So I, in the past, had worked with a child's clothing company from maternity and birth, and so you can imagine, Emily, you made the life stage comment, and I think about that too because I think in terms of cohort analysis when I'm approaching a broader strategy. So like getting away from just tactics to understanding a broader sense of how people essentially grow and change over time and how that applies to our marketing. And I think a loyalty program should be no different, right? So there should be incentives to repurchase, and you already know there's going to be that need, right? It's because you've already done the homework up front. And so if you say, okay, well, on average, babies need a new jumper every 7 months or whatever the interval is. Well, bake that into your timing of your rewards program and incentivize properly. So you already know there's a need, right? And if so, in that sense, it's about timing. It's about understanding the cadence of how you should be messaging them, and also just what goes into that messaging. So, you can imagine the messaging as being very almost like a cheerleader of like, you're doing this, you're doing great. Like, being supportive of your journey as a parent, not just trying to sell a product. So that's when we say, Elise says like design and copy and all those things are very important to the successful loyalty program because they define that experience for that customer. And so you could have the best offer in the world. Here's a free jumper for, you could be giving them away, but people might not take them because the messaging isn't resonating or the timing's off. So it's like, if I send that message at 5 months, but it's actually at 7 months that I want to hear it, well, then you have a misaligned issue with timing there. So those are like the fundamentals that, again, if you're a brand that's just starting out, like those are the things you should really be thinking about and dialing in for a good high quality framework that addresses customers at the touch points in which, they want to be hearing from you. And then aligning those proper incentives. So maybe, maybe you don't need to get too crazy and it could just be 10% off or some cash back for your next purchase, but it's aligned correctly with the timing is the point I'm trying to make. So it pays dividends to do your homework up front. And also, as we mentioned earlier, just be tracking along with progress, seeing how things are performing. And then, if you can pick up the phone and actually call a customer or get real feedback, that may be that missing insight that you're looking for.
Yes. And Chris, I think you brought up something that is very important. That is that kind of level of personalization. I feel like if brands don't do it, they're just going to be left behind. Like people are expecting that kind of treatment. They do not want to the one message that is going to be sent out to everybody. And I remember like 10 years back or even more than that, when Walmart found out about that girl who was pregnant before she knew she was pregnant because of, remember like we were talking about big data, and that was the example that came up every time in every conversation. Like, look what life is like right now, right? Like things are just, this is normal nowadays. And I wonder how brands, and especially smaller brands, how they're going to keep up with all of that and actually use that data, because it can be really hard to find all of that, and a lot of that process is still very manual. But there's definitely a lot of opportunity there, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's only an opportunity. It's also kind of a risk not to invest time and energy of your team into getting all of that done. Yeah, thank you for plugging that. Do you want to mention something, Elise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're headed, where platforms like Toki and others, Triple Whale, and anyone who does aggregate data will be able to make more suggestions as long as there's enough data saturation to come to some strong analyses with confidence and conviction. I think we can do that and offer that democratically to small merchants as well as big merchants, so that they aren't having to do what they do now, which would be like, create quizzes and surveys and anything zero party data related. And then that creates a segment, but then they got to do something with the segment. I mean, ideally we get to a point where it's a full circle where we suggest that you ask this user about this question. When you get that answer, we suggest that this email flow goes out. When this email flow goes out, money in your pocket kind of thing. And so just 2 clicks, like that can be implemented as long as humans are doing the approval, and then the rest of the automations are getting done, by the machine. Hopefully that's where we're headed.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I get chills. It's like amazing.
I didn't know you were a futurist, Elise. I'm gonna need some stock tips from you after this.
Oh yeah, put Neuralink in my brain. I'm ready for it. Full cyborg over here.
Awesome. You guys, do you have any brands that come to mind when we think of unconventional loyalty programs that you could just shout out to them right now?
I think we're pretty far from what I just described to like bring us back down to earth. A lot of we talked to a massive brand this week that's excited about just doing an international program. So we still just have a lot to do. not to be a negative Nancy over here, but just having one aggregate program that works across many brands, an aggregate program that's international, is like still exciting and creative right now. So I'll just say that. Sorry, I know that's not really an answer to your question, but wanted to say that.
No, that's a great point. And I think going back to Mariana, your point earlier around just like hyper local marketing and opportunities there, when I was thinking about some of my favorite loyalty brands, and honestly, my local gym does a phenomenal job with keeping me going back and integrating challenges and rewarding and like having community and feeling like a sense of accountability. And so I think the takeaway here with that is just, people remember how you make them feel. And so trying to think about ways that you can create that emotional connection and accountability that will keep them coming back and remembering the experience. And so uh, that's my one example of a local gym, and figuring out ways, of course, and using tools and tech to be able to scale that, but yeah, not being afraid to go hyper local and regional.
I know we're almost against time here, but I'll just jump in real quick. I think that most loyalty programs really suck. I think there's a lot of work to be done on this front, and I think it's going to require some crazy off the wall thinking. Any brands that are willing to take risk are instantly going to stand out. So there's a lot of opportunity in front of you. But part of me and what I enjoy most is a loyalty program that has a transactional aspect. So I think of REI, they're a local or a national company that's also has a heavy local presence in the Pacific Northwest, outdoor stuff. They actually make it so you can return anything if you have any issue ever. So not only are you getting points and special perks for being a member, but you also have this transactional component that I think is really interesting for myself, because it allows this next level customer service that I actually really enjoy and value. So
It's a good one.
Yeah, I love REI too. Thank you for mentioning them. And okay, guys, as we wrap up, I know we're a little bit over time, but I would love to hear your final thoughts on what this marketer that has all the foundations right on their loyalty programs, what they can do to actually take it to this another level and make it really unconventional, get people talking about it. What is the one tactic that you think they could implement today?
I'll go first. I actually think the most underutilized and least understood portion of a good loyalty program is the referral aspect. And so I think that if you were to talk about what is, if it's me and my friend and I know something that's really cool, typically that's the most trusted source beyond advertising, beyond even referral and influencer. If I'm your friend and I'm telling you to go watch this movie, you probably have the highest consideration of anybody because we're similar. So the challenge for me, and if I'm talking to the most advanced, like well-developed brand, that's the first question I'm going to start with, because really that's where you're going to get the most traction, right? So I've seen brands, and I've been a part of brands where I don't necessarily have control over the offers. I can offer my input, but it's determined by math people, and so they might say, "Hey, we're going to do. You spend $20, your friend gets $20," and it's like, okay. I mean, that's probably works okay. But my challenge to everyone watching today is, can we go beyond something like that to where it's leveraging some of these other things that we've talked about today, where it's like community based, or it's challenge based, or it's integrated with your app, or it's integrated with a transactional component, or just something that's different, because everyone's kind of doing the same thing. And I think it just works okay. But there's so much opportunity to unlock that referral network that I think, especially if you get it right, then you can scale that. And then you can also personalize that as you go. So that would be my input.
I'm actually going to add on to that. I think that was so good. I think even referring a friend to make a purchase is like a very big ask. And brand awareness is something that we're all looking for anyways. So even if you can refer a friend to share their email, or refer a friend to share their birthday, which is like an activity that we have in Toki. Now I'm plugging Toki before we leave. I think more brands should do that. We bring that up on sales calls. It's something we have. Not enough brands have taken the risk on it, but I think it's actually drastically underutilized. So.
Yeah. I love that. And I think one other thing to think about is that, like, ultimately people want to feel like they're part of something. And so how can you make your customers feel like they're part of this community or club, whether that's through the language that you're using, the types of rewards or incentives. And so I think the ultimate goal is to create a brand where, people want to wear it on their sleeve and rep it and share it and talk about it. So creating and co-creating that community and club with your customers, I feel like is an unlock that can take your program to the next level.
I gotta jump in one more time because I know we're wrapping up. This is the wildest thing I've ever seen, to leave you guys here with something fun. So there's a cannabis store. I think cannabis is a good term, right, to use. That was literally offering tattoos in store, and you get a certain set of perks or incentives if you get their logo tattooed on your forearm. So
Yep.
nothing off the table. Think as creatively and off the wall as it would be my piece of advice, and people will do it.
Love that.
I've seen that before. I think I don't remember what brand it was, but they got free something for life. Like I'm not sure if it was chili beans, the sunglasses, but
I think
yeah.
Domino's got sued because they said this, and then they never actually
Oh my
paid out
God.
for something like that. Yeah, something about a pizza slice, which pizza slice is like, yeah, I mean, I get a pizza slice for free pizza for my life,
I think I would too. Like, can I choose the place where I'm?
Yeah. Sushi? Is it pasta? What are we talking?
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Thank you guys. I loved this conversation. I had so much fun, and I wish I could have taken notes. I was like trying to take mental notes here. Oh, actually this Abe just mentioned another one. A local restaurant in Ohio offered free food for life if it did too. Oh yeah, that's the one that Lisa's talking about maybe. Awesome. Abe. Thank you for being part of the conversation. And yes, so we're going to wrap it up. And thank you for these extra 7 minutes. And I hope you all took notes as well, and that we all actually get to implement a lot of these ideas. So it's all about that as well, like getting ideas out of your idea cloud and actually turning them into reality. And of course, I would also leave an invitation for anyone here to reach out to Eliz, Chris, Emily on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure they're always open to exchange ideas, and same for me. So yes, it was great having you all, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having us.